I began subletting a rental house cabin for a couple months in 2023 when my dad and I were bucking heads and I needed to move out. The actual renter of the apartment was having his own personal issues causing him to leave the apartment, and I'll just refer to him as my landlord to make it easier. The cabin was an entire unit rental and it was paid month, which was ideal for my temporarily shitty situation. It was 2 floors technically, a small kitchen, decent sized living space, and 1 bedroom that you had to climb a little flight of stairs to get to, and there was a quirky hatch type door that you'd have to open to get to the upstairs bedroom. I had already been there for a month. I paid for the second month's rent already by this point, so I was fully situated there. The cabin sat at the end of a dirt road with a few other similarly sized cabin type houses. One was vacant as far as I knew because I never saw cars parked out front or lights on the other houses. Well, I never met the neighbors, but I knew people lived in them. I work 12-hour shifts sometimes, and when I get home I'm completely exhausted and will just go straight to bed and watch TV until I fall asleep. This was one of those nights. I got home, made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a protein shake as my late night dinner, then went to bed. I always shut the door in the floor every night. I find myself to be uncomfortable at night having the entrance to your bedroom open. Something about it makes me feel exposed or vulnerable, though. This door in the floor didn't have a lock. This cabin was made for 1 person or a couple. I was watching TV in bed when I heard a voice from down below saying, "Who's up there?" I instantly felt my heart stop for a second as I shot up to an upright position and sounded like it came from inside the house, but it also could have maybe come from outside. I grabbed the TV remote to turn off the TV. I crawled over to look at the circular window above the bed. I didn't see anyone out there, but it was also very dark. I said, "Who's there?" and the deafening silence that followed afterwards led me to getting off the bed and putting my hand on the handle to the door. I lifted the door and looked down the staircase. I actually said my dad's name, thinking maybe he came over there. Was no response. I walked downstairs. I was extremely scared. I flicked on the first light switch. I passed the living room, lit up as I expected. In the back of my head there wasn't anyone down there. I was still chalking this up to someone from outside. I turned on the front outside light and looked out the windows, and there wasn't anyone in front. By this point I was really confused. I turned off the living room light and climbed the stairs back to my bedroom, shutting the door in the floor. I was pretty awake now, so I turned the TV back on, and not even 5 minutes later I heard pounds on the bedroom door from below. They sounded angry, or like they were supposed to scare me. If there was any doubt before, this confirmed it. Someone was in the house. I left the TV on this time and just stayed completely motionless because I was genuinely too scared to move an inch. The scariest part was whoever was down there could easily open the door. As there was no luck, I laid silent for about 20 minutes, and once I felt comfortable to move, I looked for my phone, and of course, of all times, it wasn't on my nightstand. I couldn't find it. I may have left it downstairs, so I opened the door of my bedroom and looked down the stairs. With the constantly changing light from the TV screen, I could see just a little bit down the stairs to the living room, so I went down the stairs quietly and went at the bottom. Instead of turning on any lights, I ran out the back door barefoot and ran to the nearest neighbor's house where I knew people lived, and I saw their lights were on. I knocked on the door a bunch of times, and then I noticed someone at the window next to the door looking at me. I didn't know how long they had been watching me. I yelled through the glass explaining what happened, that I'm his neighbor and that I need a phone to call the police. He definitely heard me, but he just stared at me. It was unsettling, and I started to back away from the door as I realized he wasn't even responding to me, just creepily watching me. I looked around the road and saw no other houses in the distance with their lights on. Momentarily, I had a thought: what if that guy had something to do with it? I went back to my rental through the back door, which was closed just like I left it. I went inside and locked it and turned on every light in the tiny house. I looked not only for an intruder but my phone downstairs, and I finally found my phone in my car when I thought to look there. I was so tired earlier that I left it in the center console. I went back inside. The TV was still on up in the bedroom. I climbed the stairs, and when I got to the top, I saw someone sitting on my bed staring at the TV. It was a man. I screamed, and he turned his head slowly to look at me, and before I could see anything else, I ran back down the stairs and outside, and now with my phone cold 911. I sat in my locked car watching the house on the line with 911 and I saw someone walking past the backyard of the house disappearing into the woods. I told the operator this when a police car arrived. The one officer checked the house and upstairs room after I told him that I saw someone, most likely the intruder, walk away into the woods. He asked if I had any other places to stay that night, and so I swallowed my pride and went back to my dad's house for the night. After packing some of my important stuff, I returned to the house the next day and stayed another night, then collected the rest of my stuff. Luckily, the landlord agreed to giving me some of my money back. He asked me what the man looked like, and after that he didn't ask any more questions, which to me is pretty sus. Something was unusual in that situation from that creepy neighbor ignoring me to the landlord's random, urgent need to move out to someone fall on breaking into the house. Maybe it's all connected, or maybe I'm overthinking. Like broken headlights, so I just assumed this guy was one of their clients. I kept walking down the side road with the van still going slowly down the main road. About 5 seconds later, I jumped when I heard the sound of the van roar, and it sped up really fast, except now it had its lights on. I was startled but not worried. This was until the van got closer to the turn for the side road. About 500 feet away from the turn, the van turned off its lights again and slowed down. Now I was this point I ran for my life down the dirt road. I heard what I'm positive was a gunshot not far away, and I really thought this was how I was going to die. I made a quick turn into one of the surrounding forests and hid behind a big rock. I heard what sounded like a middle-aged man not far away say, "I think she went into the woods," and then to my horror what sounded like 3 young girls, with one of them responding, "Okay, sir, I'll see if we can find her now." I wasn't fearing for my life. I was worrying I was going to be forced into whatever sick group this was. I was covering my mouth, trying not to make any sound, when I heard the man say, "Whoever finds her doesn't have to drink the blood to tonight." A million thoughts ran through my head. Is this some sort of satanic cult? Are these girls kidnapped? Will I become one of them? I spent what felt like an eternity sitting behind the rock, being scared of any sound that I could hear. Then to my relief I heard, "Cop, sir, nearby." I stayed there just to be safe. When I felt the courage to look from behind the rock, I saw red and blue lights right outside the forest. I ran out screaming for help, and the cops came to me and said, "Ma'am, do you know about this body?" I was confused and said, "What body?" Then I saw in front of the cop car the most gruesome thing I will ever see. It was what looked like a naked young woman, gutted, blood everywhere. There was no van in sight. I then explained everything to the cops: the car, the man, the girls who had to drink the blood. The cops said they'd look into it and were nice enough to drive me home that night. When I couldn't sleep, I looked out my window to see the van, the same one from before, driving slowly without its lights on down my street. This time I was smart and wrote down the license plate. I called the cops immediately and told them what I saw and gave the license plate number as expected. When the cops came, the van was long gone, but what they told me is what will horrify me to this day. The cops said, "We checked the license plate number. It's a plate registered in South Dakota, but the thing is, we checked with other precincts around the country, and they've gotten reports tonight that there was also a suspicious van with that license plate, one in Vermont, one in Nevada, one in Alaska, and one in Texas. They said, we'll call you if we get any more information." The cops left and I never got a call. I don't really believe in the paranormal, so my best guess is that it was some sort of cult that used fake license plates to do their sick things all across the country. But I guess I'll never know. I moved out of Indiana. Now I make sure when I see something suspicious I bolt.